Hi, I'm David Ireland, the Wildlife Man. I've explored literally hundreds of sandstone caves around Australia and seen many Aboriginal engravings and paintings of native animals. Indigenous people believed that they were ancestral spirits and animals had to be respected. However, early European settlers introduced feral animals into Australia's wilderness. The ferals quickly exploded in numbers and have been causing localised extinction of native animals and plants that are found nowhere else on Earth. In this episode of The Wildlife Man, we will showcase the numerous methods on how to control feral animal numbers in the wild. Mountain ranges of outback New South Wales are home to ancient species of grass trees that were here before the age of the dinosaur. I'm here with a very dear friend of mine. Hugh is an experienced bushman but also a qualified arborist. Hugh, we've got a big problem with these ancient grass trees and the goats. What are the billy goats doing to these beautiful old trees?
They're knocking them over, Dave.
So they're actually pushing them over?
Pushing them over. They rub their horns and then push into the trunk.
Tell me a little bit about this skirt. Now, you were saying before that even the nannies and the kids use these trees for shelter. What's happening to the skirt? What are the goats doing to it?
By rubbing into the skirt, they're actually moving the skirt away from the trunk.
Yeah, so you get a bare trunk.
So we get a bare trunk.
And then what happens? What are the goats doing to the bare trunk?
Well, the trunk's exposed and then the goats keep on pushing onto the trunk and they can push them over.
So the skirt's been removed, ring bark that dies,
Yep.
and then boom.
It's collapsed.
Are there hundreds of goats in these mountains?
Thousands, Dave.
Thousands of goats.
Thousands of goats.
In some situations where we want to be very quiet, we use a compound bow instead of a rifle to cull feral animals like pigs and goats. These machines take a great deal of practice to be clever enough to shoot the animal humanely and bring it down quickly. So we do a lot of practice. This is a 3D model of a wild boar, and we use this to practice on. And we need to shoot the animal in the vital region, just behind the shoulder. That way the arrow takes out the lungs as well as the heart and kills the creature very, very quickly. Now we practice at 20 metres. Now the 3D suit allows me to get very, very close to the goats so that I can get a humane kill. Beautiful. When goats come down to little creeks like this, billabongs or water holes, they defecate into the water, and goats carry dangerous diseases that can spread to native animals and even to humans. time now to find the goat herds. Goats spread weeds, cause soil erosion, carry diseases and overgraze native shrubs. Feral animals like goats and pigs have contributed to threatening over 1,000 plant species with future extinction. Well, this big fella died very, very quickly because I got pretty close. I shot him at about 10 metres. A goat this size weighs probably around 90 kilograms. So you can imagine just how many little bushes and shrubs and wildflowers that this animal would eat in a year. And that's food that we need for native animals. Where goat numbers are controlled, grass trees are in abundance. But where goats thrive, sharp hooves erode precious topsoil. The mountains become barren wastelands. It took over 2 hours to climb this mountain. It's very, very steep, it's hot and it's dangerous getting up here. We've managed to cull this big billy very quickly with an arrow. But I don't feel sorry for them because these goats are stripping these mountains. It's time now to move our camp using the amazing Argo. These ATVs can even cross creeks and rivers. Can you believe how steep this mountain is? It's ridiculous. Have a look. Well, we've got goats up there, but they're about 1,000 foot up. Oh my God. Powerful binoculars help me locate the goat herds on the higher ridges. Grass trees have an incredibly slow growth rate. Feral goats are killing these ancient trees and preventing any regrowth. I've swapped my bow for a .243 rifle. Some serious culling must take place now. You see a beautiful coat on these wild goats. They're magnificent creatures. but they just don't belong here in Australia. This is a real mature billy. The hunters would regard him as an absolute trophy because the horns are well over the 40 inches. He's a monster. He would have sired many kids in his lifetime. But we're not here to hunt trophy goats. We're here to remove the goats from this mountain. Crossing Mountain Springs gives me some welcome relief from the summer heat. Higher up the mountain, the goats have infested a pine forest. Sadly, they have completely stripped the forest floor of vegetation. A few months ago, I travelled to the Canberra University to talk to scientists that work on feral animal control. What does CRC do?
Well, as you know, Australia has a huge feral animal problem, and the Invasive Animals Cooperative Research Centre brings together a whole suite of Australian research organisations, industry groups, as well as international organisations from New Zealand, USA and UK. And the idea is that we're all pulling together to deliver the next generation feral animal control products. And they range from the high-tech stuff, so it's the biocontrol technologies for rabbit control and carp biocontrol, through to new sort of more humane baits for wild dogs, foxes, feral pigs, as well as a whole suite of information products which we promote through our PestSmart information toolkit and roadshow. So the idea is it's generating that next suite of control products, but also looking at how we can sort of effectively share those products and get those information tools out to farmers, landholders, rangers, and whoever else has a feral animal problem.
David Jenkins is a qualified vet, and he explains how parasites are carried by feral animals. David, can you tell me a bit about hydatids and why hydatids can be such a major problem to native animals, especially wallabies?
Well, hydatids was imported into this country during settlement, so none of the native animals in Australia had ever been confronted with this parasite before, and they are exquisitely susceptible to infection.
So they had no immunity to it?
None at all, no. And the wild dogs can develop huge infections of tapeworms in their guts, and these tapeworms are tiny. They're only about 3 millimeters long. So it's wild dogs, eggs into the environment, the wallabies and kangaroos eating the eggs, and the dingoes eating the infected wallabies.
Yeah.
The larva digs out through the gut with little hooks, gets into the bloodstream, and then goes around to the internal organs. Now, in wallabies and kangaroos, it's almost exclusively the lungs. In pigs, it's liver and lungs. In humans, it's most commonly the liver.
The liver, yeah. Is it possible for the eggs to be transmitted to humans by flies?
Absolutely. The eggs are in the environment. Once they're in the environment, if it's not too hot and dry, they'll stay infected for at least a year.
Oh, really?
And
that
then,
long?
Yeah. And flies can land on dingo
feces, I
on
guess.
feces. Yes, they ingest it up. You get what are called coprophagous flies. These are flies that like to eat feces.
Yeah.
They ingest the feces and the eggs go in too, and they can have several hundred eggs inside them. Then they fly away to somewhere else. They poo the eggs out onto grass
Or your sandwich.
Or your sandwich. Yeah. And these eggs have been shown to be perfectly infective to sheep. Well, to sheep certainly, but they'd be infected to wallabies too.
And of course humans.
Oh yeah, certainly.
The farmers have set a trap here around this tank, and they've caught a number of small pigs. And these traps work very, very well. It's simply a trap door, allows them in, they can't get back out again, and they go in there for the grain. The main thing is that the trap has to be checked every day, so you can humanely cull the pigs quickly so they're not in there for too long, which would be cruel. So, Richard, have the pigs really damaged your dam? You're having problems sucking the water up, are you? What's happening here?
Well, the pigs have just wallow all around the edge of the dam, and they make such a mess of it. They stir it up, they do all their droppings and urinate in it, and it's just made it like soup.
Yeah.
So it's completely unsuitable for our sheep and cattle to drink.
And I can see they've dug up all the way around the banks.
That's right. Yeah, they've virtually ruined this water supply from this dam.
Absolutely. Got to be very careful out of these traps because they're so strong they can actually get out. They can bash the wire apart or even climb over the top. And you don't want an angry pig on you. Have a go at him. I spot a large sow close to the trap. Even these sows have got quite lethal jaws. Look in that mouth. And they can be quite dangerous, especially when they've got piglets near them. Oh, that one's finished. A local wheat farmer tells me about how he contracted Q fever from pigs.
We're having huge problems with them damaging crops.
Yep.
Predation of lambs is also a big problem, and they're also spreading disease. In fact, I actually contracted Q fever.
Really? From pigs?
From pigs, from wild pigs, yes.
Tell me, how long did it take you to get over the Q fever?
I spent 9 days in hospital,
Really?
quite gravely ill, and then spent another month at home with quite bad fatigue, sleeping up to 20 hours a day. And it took a further 5 years to fully recover from the extreme fatigue that I suffered.
We're going out to do some pig dogging. Take a couple of these big buffhead dogs and see if we can cull some of the boar down. Look at the size of these dogs. Hello, mate. Big buff head. Look at the size of you. Look at him. Whoa. But they have to wear special collars to protect their chest and their lungs from the tusks of the wild boar. And he'll do the job, won't you, mate? Eh? I join local farmers in their never-ending job of feral animal control. Using their excellent sense of smell, trained pig dogs can locate pigs hiding in long grass hundreds of metres away. Pull him over. He's a fairly young one, but you don't want your leg inside that mouth. They're incredibly powerful jaws, and you can imagine the bacteria on those little tusks. And it's not easy hunting them with dogs either. You're running over really tough ground. Lots of stones and rocks and holes. You can easily break a leg or twist an ankle. Well, there's one.
He's 12 months old.
Yeah, I'm 12 months old.
And that one's probably about 5 years. I'm not
How many times have you been pig hunting?
a lot,
A lot. So you do the sticking?
if I can.
Okay. Well, this is the war machine we've got here. And it is full-on war against pigs in the outback, it really is. Hunting dogs, knives, and a ton of guts and courage. We go again?
Go again.
All right, let's go. I'm here with Lachlan and Bethany. And Lachlan, how old are you? 12. And you're 21. You've been hunting pigs since you were 10 or 12, is it?
12, 13.
12, 13. And we're holding down a reasonably large bull. And we're not going to let it go, because if we do, it'll probably bite us. This guy's a bit quiet because it was a long chase catching it. It's a bit knocked up. But if we let it go, it'll do some damage. There's such a curse, these wild pigs. The young kids out on these properties, they get stuck into them. It's a never-ending battle to try and control the pig numbers. Feral pigs can drive cattle ranchers bankrupt by spreading dangerous diseases into the cattle. Rick, the pigs here are carrying leptospirosis.
Yeah, correct, yep.
What effect is that disease having on the cattle here?
It's huge, mate. Like sterilising cattle and sterilising bulls, and yeah, like it's one of those diseases. Well, next door neighbour actually went out of cattle for that fact.
Really?
Yeah.
So what, the bulls carry the disease and then they infect the cows?
Yeah, infect the cows, and before you know it, like you've got an infertile herd.
Really? So
Yep.
what are you going to do? Just get rid of them?
Get rid of them. Yeah, exactly.
So it must cost a fortune.
A fortune, mate. I think they said that drove the next door neighbour out of cattle. He's purely sheep man now.
What percentage of the pigs have got these diseases?
I think by the sound of the majority of them.
Really?
Yep.
God, it's a nuisance.
Mate,
for
it's
you,
a
eh?
nuisance, and that's why to a certain degree we've got to eradicate wild pigs.
Yeah, and we're not winning the battle, are we?
No, definitely not. People think in the city that they haven't seen wild pigs around, but out here they're a natural occurrence. You just see them on a daily basis.
Yeah, hundreds of them. And thankfully, there's a new bait that's been developed by the CRC and Animal Control Technologies. It's arguably the best way to control feral pigs in the outback. The best delivery system for the pig out is to use what they call a hog hopper. What happens with the door up? We load the hog hopper with non-poisonous pig out. Every night the pigs come and they feed from the hog hopper. More and more pigs each night. Eventually, we load through the top the hog hopper with the poisonous pig out, and the door goes down. Because pigs will nudge up using their muzzle, they'll lift things, they put their nose under the bar, they lift and they feed. So non-target species can't get access to the poisonous pig out. This is the best system for controlling pigs. Oh, it absolutely stinks. These pigs are omnivorous animals, which means they feed on vegetation and also meat. This one was shot a few weeks ago, and the pigs have cannibalised the carcass, so they also eat each other. They're a shocking thing. The problem with these pigs too is that when they defecate in drinking water, then stock, sheep and cattle can pick up the diseases they carry. It's time now for some nocturnal culling with my canine mates. And there's a really decent fox. And we've got this bloke spotlighting. Pretty late at night, we're very, very cold in the back of a Toyota with some local guys that are very clever. Shot this one with a 243, which is a bit of an overkill. But these things are a horrific pest. They cause the extinction of so many native Australian animals. They're a beautiful creature, wonderful animal. Very, very smart predators, but they just don't belong here in Australia. Sorry, mate, you gotta go. Well, now we're shooting rabbits as well. They're such an incredible pest. They look cute, but believe me, they're not in the Australian outback. You only need one rabbit in an area the size of a football paddock to stop regrowth. They are such a shocking pest. They cause an enormous amount of erosion. They're a terrible, terrible curse in the Australian outback, the rabbit. They look cute, but believe me, they are not. They're a real pest. On the open paddocks, we chase the pigs. The size of these guys. They're a big, strong animal, and there's some nasty tusks in there. Now these tusks can easily rip up a dog or even a man. They're incredibly lethal. They grind against each other and they're very, very sharp. And the jaws of a wild boar are just so powerful, they can crunch up the bones of a kangaroo without any trouble at all. Tell me about these collars that you've got here.
They're actually a radio transmitter collar.
Yeah.
Just tell you the direction of your dog.
And how far out they are from you?
And how far they are away.
And I'm noticing they come back to you very, very quickly, don't they?
They do, yeah.
So they just jump off the bike, race in, grab the pig?
As soon as they smell you.
As soon as they smell one, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is your favourite dog?
Oh, I can't pick a favourite.
Oh, you can't pick favourites?
No.
Look at the big buff head on this one. What amazes me about these pig dogs is they're so tough. They run in and grab onto a wild boar, and yet they make such great pets. And they're really, really good with people. Film.
Get up! Get up, Jimmy! Get up! Jimmy!
Using dogs and knives is highly successful. The boars will fight to their last breath. We leave outback New South Wales and travel to the magnificent wetlands of Cape York. Sadly, pig numbers here are in their thousands. I joined Clint, a local guide at Maluna Station, one of the few stations that supplements its income with paying bow hunters. In the wet season, these creeks turn into raging rivers and the water level goes right up over the banks. But of course the whole place is a perfect habitat for feral animals like wild pig and also the very dangerous scrub bulls. Wow, look at this. And this is what we have to be very careful about. That's the skull of a scrub bull. And these animals, in my opinion, are by far the most dangerous feral animal to hunt. Look at the horns on this guy. And they're hard to see, you wouldn't think so. But in this heavy scrub they're hard to see and they're very territorial. There he is. If you come round this side. Well, that's a real true bush beast. It's a scrub bull. National parks and wildlife, they cull hundreds of these in the national parks. And sadly, because cattle prices are not that high and freight charges are so expensive, it's hard to make any money out of cattle in Cape York. And these scrub bulls can be quite dangerous, especially in a hunting situation. They can weigh up to over 1,000 kilograms. And of course they're a feral animal, they're an introduced species. And I shot it with a bow, but I was very happy that I had Clint, my guide, backing me up with a 338, which is a very powerful rifle. So there it is, a scrub bull, Australia's bush beast, arguably the most dangerous one to hunt free range. Now I'm holding this boar up to give you an idea of the size. These are the real bush beasts. Huge animals, incredibly dangerous. But lucky for this one, you can see the blood there was a double lung heart shot with the arrow, so it died very quickly. I don't like them, but I want them to die humanely. Whoa, it's crocodile bait now. Oh, yuck. Oh, whoa. Sometimes the crocodiles cull the feral animals like pigs, and they do a pretty good job. This little boar had a wallow down here on this billabong. The crocodiles grabbed hold of it, done a roll, broken the back leg on the wild pig, ripped open its guts. The pig's run up here and died. And we can see the legs are broken. So the old croc, he doesn't mind a wild boar for breakfast now and again. I'm sitting here with Clint, doing a bit of crocodile calling at a billabong. There's two crocs, one big one. And we've got some great footage quite close. This is highly dangerous. You've got to be so careful. Because if they don't come straight out of the billabong where I'm calling, I've had them even go up on the bank and come from behind. Smart. If the crocs here have plenty of wild boar for dinner, I promise you that. See if we can get a bit more footage, a bit more calling. Years ago, an Aboriginal elder taught me much about crocodile behaviour, and especially how to call them. The knowledge I gained from the Aboriginal elder greatly helped me with the production of my film Crocodile Man. Just like the blood drain when they came, they fed very quickly and they snapped at the bait very, very fast. The cage started to become buffeted somewhat. I could feel their legs and their heads and their tails hitting the cage, and I could feel it shaking. I spent many days in a baited cage and achieved spectacular crocodile footage. At one stage, a huge crocodile nearly pulled my cage over. To save my life, I had to cut loose the baits. It's time now to cull down the feral pig numbers. I shot this boar. He was in a mob of pigs with a number of sows and also piglets. It's important to understand that a boar like this will mate with 10 or more sows in a year, maybe up to 20 sows. Each sow can have 8 to 14 piglets about every 8 months. So the population of feral pigs absolutely explodes from one boar. This absolutely stinks. But it's important to understand that livestock like horses and cattle can get diseases and parasites from wild dogs, foxes and pigs. It spreads into livestock and they die. Whoa, I can't stand there any longer. I can see a small pig here feeding on a cattle carcass. But then I spot a huge boar. To achieve a humane kill, I will have to risk my life and creep dangerously close. Well, this is a big pig, this one. We came up onto a carcass of an old bull that's died, and this boar was feeding on it. And this is another razorback, except this guy has got some very, very sharp tusks. He's a dangerous old pig. What worried me was all this mud around the chest, because it's hard for the arrow to go through that dry mud. So I had to angle the arrow from the back to get a humane shot to the heart. And we dropped him, he only walked about 2 metres and he died. So there's another dangerous wild boar, a razorback, that we don't have to worry about on this property. Oh, I would not like to have my leg inside those jaws. Feral animals are a major reason for habitat destruction and localised native animal extinction. However, when feral animal numbers are controlled, the wilderness can regenerate. And native animals can once again thrive.